Hey, let's start the reading vlog. It's Friday, the first day of my vacation, and I'm 3 weeks off work. I don't have any travel plans or any big plans to do something other than relax a lot. I need to reset and recharge my batteries. I ran out of resilience, as you all know, so my plan for the first week is to read a book a day. I'm trying to read short books so that I can spend Christmas with a really big book again and really hunker down. That's the goal for the first week. Reading currently my first book in the short books I want to finish, and it's Even Though I Knew How It Ended, or Even Though I Knew the End. I keep forgetting the title. I really like the story. It's in the 1940s in Chicago, and there have been murders, and we're following an investigator or a detective who takes magic or mystical crime pictures so she can see what happened. And overall, we are stuck in a story with warlocks, demons, angels, vampires maybe, and it's really fascinating. The only trouble I have is that the writing or the style of writing is not a kind of writing that I overly enjoy, but everything about the story is right up my interests and what I like. So I'm hopefully finishing that today, and then I don't know what I'm going to read tomorrow, but I hope for 1 week, 7 books, short books, around 150 pages I think is possible for me to do. So let's see how that goes. And it's Saturday lunchtime. Like I expected, I finished Even Though I Knew the End yesterday. After my vaccination, I went to town and got a second breakfast, and I read the rest of the book. I really enjoyed the magic in it. I really enjoyed the twists and turns the story took. I can highly recommend it for the storyline. There's also a story aspect, or part of the story is how homosexuality or lesbians are treated in 1940 Chicago and what they did to hide, because our main character is a lesbian. And so if that's an aspect of the story you're interested in, that's also in there. Like I said, I struggled with the writing to the end. It's just not the type of writing I particularly care about. That doesn't mean that you might not like it. So I would recommend sampling it to see if you enjoy the writing, and then you can enjoy the wonderful, fun story. One reason for me to go to town was because I ordered a book at the bookstore and I wanted to pick it up, realizing that I ordered the wrong book. Or not particularly. I wanted to read more German authors, and I heard Sophie, I think, talk about this author, and I thought she mentioned that she's living in Berlin and writing and won a prize, a German prize. So I ordered the book because the title sounded nice. It's 2 novellas, and it's Think I Think While I'm Smiling Politely and Synchronicity. So I ordered it in German, and I didn't realize that the first thing I saw when I opened it is that it's translated from the English. So the author is British but lives in Berlin and moved here. Well, anyways, I read both of these stories already, and I enjoyed the second one better than the first one. The first story follows a young woman through her breakup or the divorce or decline of her marriage. We're getting 10 chapters, and it's sort of like a countdown: 10, 9, 8, 7. And the woman, who also came from England to Berlin, lives in Berlin now, married a German. She's originally, her ancestors come from Ghana, so there's a mixed marriage there, not only from British and German, but also mixed black and white. And there is some of the conflict that is happening there, but mostly it's a story of their breakup, a story of her inner view, of her inner anger and frustrations. And it made it hard to really connect to the character in a likable way. Not that you have to do that, but I found myself not really caring about the events. It was very interesting to hear about her friendships and the people that she had connections with and what she thought of them, because it's the inside of her head. Honestly, I often think that on the inside we are nicer and not nicer than on the outside. So this here is a portrayal of all the things she sometimes doesn't really say, and also but what she thinks and how she sees herself. And sometimes we see how the others think about what she thinks about herself. And it is an interesting story in parts. It's a good portrayal of how life in Berlin is, of her family life and the connections she has and the stupid things she does after the separation or after her husband leaves her. And it was okay for that. I just really didn't care for it that much, but it was a very, very fast read. The second story, Synchronicity, I enjoyed a lot more. This actually is more written like an advent calendar. It says in the comments or acknowledgements in the back that she wrote this actually as an advent calendar, one story a day that she sent to her friends. And it's following a young black woman again, although I don't know if she's actually young. She must have a grown-up daughter, so I don't know what age she actually is. But it's very short chapters again, and in every chapter she loses a color, so she doesn't see a color anymore. The stories get longer and longer as the days progress, and there's more you learn about the woman, about her background, about her history, about the life she leads, and also the struggles she has. This I found much more fascinating and interesting because after losing the colors, they all come back, and it totally changes her perception of life. So the second story I can recommend much more. And like they're originally written in English, so you can all read them. At the bookstore, I also picked up another short book, Der Kontrabass, or The Double Bass by Süskind. I read The Perfume years ago. I liked the writing and how he played with words, but I thought in the middle it was rather repetitive. So this is no danger here. It's under 100 pages, I think. So that's what I'm going to try and finish today. I've also managed to go on a walk yesterday, and I want to go on a walk now. I'm currently listening to Life with Footnotes, the biography of Terry Pratchett. This is rather interesting to listen to because it's from the perspective, or it's written by his personal assistant, and there's a whole introductory chapter that I've listened to already where he explains how he became his personal assistant and the life they had together, and also his perspective on Terry Pratchett and the things and the biography. And it was very interesting. There was one part which made me realize that I'm not a particularly fan person. I've never written to authors. I still find it kind of awkward when, due to internet and Twitter, I have interactions with authors because this channel makes it easy to access what I say about books. And I'm not the person to seek that out. I'm not a person to go to signings, and I'm definitely not the person to write letters to my favorite authors. And there is a section where they talk about this in Terry Pratchett's life, himself as a reader and as an author. And I thought that was very interesting, that even though he's the person that I probably read the most and the longest, or who has been my favorite author for the longest, because I've been reading his books since I was a teenager and loving them. And I never actually cared enough or was interested enough to seek out connection. Anyways, I'm probably going to need the whole week to finish that because I think it's 16 or 17 hours. I'm speeding it up a little bit, but not that much that you can finish it in a day or two. So that's probably the only audiobook I'm going to listen to in this week. And it's Sunday lunchish. I just got out of bed, so having breakfast in a minute. But I first wanted to tell you what I read since we last talked. I finished The Double Bass yesterday afternoon. Turned out this was a one-man play instead of a novella, as I thought, and it was well done. It started off a little bit feeling like an obnoxious or snob mansplaining music to you. So there is this man that's talking to you, and he's talking about the double bass, its place in the orchestra, and then he goes on about some music history and how it came that no one writes for double bass and the importance they play, and on and on and on. Then it turns a lot more into complaining about the double bass, about his life, about his place in the orchestra. You get the feeling that he's not the most talented or ambitious of player, and he keeps drinking beer while he's talking to you. So the more the play progresses, the more annoying and angry he gets, and it is interesting to read. It's probably more interesting to see. So that was a fast-paced, enjoyable read. I don't know if it was enjoyable. So since this was so short, I finished it in the afternoon. I'm starting to think that Trying to read a book a day for someone who does most of their reading at night is not a good concept, because after reading that I felt a little bit down, so I wanted to do something nice, and I resisted the urge to read one of the spin-off novellas from the Dominion of the Fallen series, but I still wanted to read something uplifting after these two downer books. And then I found short stories that are set in the Dominion of the Fallen series. So I spent the night doing that. I think I read one short story and a short story collection. They are all stories about the characters from the first book, The Shattered House of Wings. One story was about how Emmanuel and Celine got together, how their relationship started. One story was about Morningstar and some character I really don't remember. One story was about a fallen out at night and being helped by a houseless human person. And then there was one story where the House of Silver Spires woke up and Morningstar had disappeared, and how they handled that. Basically how Celine took over power. And I really enjoyed the short stories. I'm usually not a big fan of short stories because I never know what to say about them. They feel like, yeah, an appetizer for something, and you mostly want more. But since they were set in the world and nice stories around characters you already knew, I found that very enjoyable. And now I want to continue with the book a day sort of thing, because I have the Treacle Walker, I don't even know how to say that, and it's short, but since I overdid it a little bit yesterday, I don't want to push myself to finish that today per se. I give myself till tomorrow afternoon, definitely, maybe even tomorrow evening, because when I came back from my walk yesterday, I was really, really exhausted, and I think I may need to allow myself more downtime where I'm just doing nothing. And trying to push through books is not the same as doing nothing. I don't know what doing nothing is, because as I've realized, I'm very bad at relaxing. I gave myself this first week of my vacation to relax and not really do anything, to really calm down. But it's just a long weekend so far because it's Sunday and I've been flying through books, which is enjoyable, but it's not the same as doing nothing and resting. So I'm not sure if I can keep this up, but definitely the next read is the Treacle Walk. Well, that didn't go according to plan. Monday lunchish again, and time to check in. As planned, I didn't start till late afternoon reading Treacle Walker, but as not planned, I didn't stop. So I finished this in one sitting because I was so in love with the writing and the story. I don't even think I could sum up the story for you, but this type of book is just the type of book I really enjoy, where I'm drawn in by the writing. I'm captivated by things going on and happening without knowing what actually is happening. The only thing that I regret is that I went down and bought the beautiful hardcover instead of the ebook, because I looked so many words up that I missed doing this on the page. Anyways, I really, really enjoyed this. I can highly recommend this if you like strange books that are not forward coming with story and plot and actually you don't know what happens till the end. Yeah, recommended. Finishing that earlier than I had planned, I needed something new to read. And I used my new wishlist organization that I set up yesterday afternoon, because I noticed that I keep going back to choosing books by the lengths. And so I made it easier for myself. I sub-organized my one wish list into 4. Now I have a wish list for under 150 pages, under 250 pages, under 350 pages, and above. So now I have easy choice for books around the 100-page mark or under 150 pages, which is what I've been going for this week. And I found Psyche in a Dress. I didn't remember anything about it, and honestly, I have no clue how that got into my wish list. The only person I can blame for that, or I can think of blaming for that, is Jean, because it's connected to Greek myth. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, this book was a very fast read because it was mostly written in verse, and I don't think I understood completely what was going on, and I don't know if I liked it or not. The story, roughly superficially said, could be following a young woman and her abusive relationships with her parents and with the man she meets throughout her life, and also a little bit about her life. But all of that is connected to Greek mythical characters, and I understand enough of the Greek myth characters or Greek mythology to superficially follow the story, but I am completely aware that I did not understand enough of the background references to completely deep dive into what was going on. So I don't know exactly what I think about that. And also all the abusive relationships, not really something I enjoy reading. So I don't know if I would recommend this. But it was a very fast read as it was written in verse. So me not sleeping through the night, I needed something else again. And that's my eating. So I started reading the Cybernetic Tea Shop, I think it's called. And that was very relaxing. It was a very comfortable, cozy read about a young woman who's a technician, nomad. She's roaming around the country, doesn't feel like settling down. And it's set in some kind of future where they are beyond robots, because with the personality developing AI, they became too much like humans and people didn't like that. So they don't build robots anymore, but something they call Wraith, which is an acronym as well for, I forgot, but it's basically a limited AI that doesn't develop itself and doesn't grow or learn, but it has a certain type of personality. And she has a hummingbird with her that keeps waking up and is her personal assistant. And so that is her background. And then she moves to a new city where there is still a robot functioning who's running a tea shop. And they get to know each other. And it's just a cozy little romance story. And I think this is exactly the feeling that everybody else keeps talking about getting from Legends and Latte. And if you remember, Legends and Latte was not exactly what I expected, and I didn't enjoy it that much. But if you enjoyed Legends and Latte and the mood of the coziness, then I think you will also enjoy the Cybernetic Tea Shop. And that leaves me in want for another book already. I have no clue what I want to read. I want to have breakfast now. It's raining and gray and dark outside. That's why I'm in my kitchen and all the background noises here. But I don't know, maybe I should check out a book from the minus 250 wish list part, because I keep flying through those 100-page books. I'll tell you tomorrow what I've read today and probably finished again, since I'm not sleeping at night. And it's Wednesday early afternoon. Let's check in. Yesterday I didn't really feel like filming or going out, so I spent the whole day in and finished The Gold Diggers. The Gold Diggers is one of a little bit longer novels, so I read about 250 pages. And so I didn't fly through it as I did through the other ones, and also this had quite some tough topics. The book is following a group of migrants who flee or illegally migrate from Zimbabwe to South Africa. So the book starts off with them illegally crossing the border and the events that happen there. And then we follow the different characters for around about 5 or 6 years, I think, in different flashbacks, learning about why they migrated and how life was treating them in South Africa. This book is sort of a collection of typical migration experiences and also historical events around that time that the book is set, 2008, around that time. And the things that happened in Zimbabwe and in South Africa, how migrants were treated and how the economy in Zimbabwe basically tanked, and that's why a lot of people were fleeing the country. All of that already makes for tough topics and a difficult read, or not an easy, fluffy, lighthearted read, let's say it like that. It's not difficult to read, but the topic isn't lighthearted. But on top of that, we also see a lot of violence, mostly directed from men to women, but we also see men victims of the violence. There's a lot of rape as well, and there's a lot of societal background where you have the feeling that the main idea for men is to be in control and women are there to do their bidding and take care of the household and not have it their own opinion. Now, I don't know how much of that is representative of the whole of the country, Zimbabwe and South Africa, but in that book we see a lot of the characters suffering from these stereotypes. And the book is really, really well written. The way it is set up, that you follow those different characters through their lives, that you get to know about them more and more, and that you see what is happening to them. Everything feels real and not exaggerated, which is awful, because some of the things are really awful and you would want them to be made up, but it's not realistic that they are made up. So it's that part of the book that made it really hard to read, but also so good, because you really could feel that this is a well-researched book, that this is portraying a situation that has been and is still the truth for many people. And it also makes you really, really desperate about what kind of life and society we live in. I have to admit, at some points I also felt a little bit grateful for winning the parents' lottery, because I think we cannot do anything about where we are born to and where we're born into. And I'm very lucky to have been born to decent parents who had a stable income, who lived in a peaceful time in a rather stable or growing economy that is still pretty safe. And I cannot complain about that. So a lot of the things that happened to the people were not their fault. And that sometimes also feels so arbitrary when you think about all the ways that we treat refugees, or that we try to keep them away, because it's not their fault being born into a situation. And sometimes, or oftentimes, they find themselves in situations they didn't really do anything about. Just thinking about Ukraine and the war there. It's not like the Ukrainians did anything to deserve that. And still they have troubles going anywhere. Anyways, going on a tangent. So I finished that book yesterday evening, and you can imagine that after that I was looking for something more uplifting and lighthearted. So I was happy to see that there's a new or a third book in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. This is the series where you can go into a cafe, sit in a special chair, and travel back in time to meet people who've also been in that cafe at that time. There are a few rules that you have to follow, and then you can time travel a little bit. It's a really quiet and peaceful story. I really like the first and the second book in this series, let's call it like that. And now in November, a third book came out. I forgot the title, I have to admit that. And so I was very happy to see that. And this morning I read the first story, and just like before, it's very cozy and comforting. The cafe this time is not the one from the first two books, but a different one in a different city, and the rules are the same. You have to sit in that chair, you cannot change anything in the past, or anything you do in the past will not change the present, and you have to return and drink your coffee before it gets cold. Otherwise you will turn into the person who sits in that chair all the time and cannot go back to life. In the first chapter is about a young woman who lost her parents as a child and had a really, really hard and tough life afterwards, because nothing really went well. The relatives didn't really take care of her for a long time. And then they put her into social services and bullying and leaving school early. Basically the story of someone who wasn't or hasn't been loved. And she's very frustrated and maybe a little bit suicidal, and wants to blame the parents, so she wants to go back in time and really, really complain to them. And then she travels back in time, and what happens? That's the first story. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed being with the characters again, even though I forgot some of the connections there. But there's a family tree in the beginning, but it was too small on my Kindle to read. So I put that off for a little bit later and try to find if I can see that on my computer so I can enlarge it. Anyways, I'm enjoying that. It's about 220 pages, so I don't know if I'm going to finish all of the other 3 stories today, or if I will allow myself to do that tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to see my family in Bremen, so I don't have that much time to read. And I'm starting to notice that I'm spending quite a lot of money on new books. So I don't know if I want to buy a new book tomorrow or start the longer one that I intend to read over Christmas. I don't know yet. I'll tell you tomorrow before I go to Bremen how far I've read and how much I finished and what I'm going to read then. Still listening to Terry Pratchett Alive with Footnotes. I'm going to go out now, even though it's raining, but I didn't go out yesterday and it didn't work out well for my mental health, so better go out and at least go a little bit for a walk and listen to some more of Terry Pratchett's story. I'm enjoying that immensely. really, really good choice of book for the week. And it's Friday lunches as usual, and there's gray and gray and gray. Did you know that Bremen apparently has sunshine? I was in Bremen yesterday and that was a super sunny day, and I came back and it was just gray and gray and gray and rain again. Anyways, let's sum up my week of reading a book a day. I think I left you with my reading plans for Wednesday, which didn't turn out as planned. When I came back from my walk, I was hit with a wall of sad and couldn't read. And on Thursday, like I said, I was in Bremen and I didn't feel like reading or couldn't focus on reading as well either. So on the train ride to Bremen, I finished listening to Terry Pratchett, A Life with Footnotes, which I really enjoyed. The audiobook is really well done. I must admit that the enjoyment of listening to the book or the story itself went down quite a bit after his diagnosis and the preceding years, and especially the ending. I was maybe crying in public on a train, but yeah, moving on. Anyways, I really enjoyed it, and it made me realize that I really need to continue my reread of the Discworld series and maybe start picking up the books I'd been avoiding to read because there are no more books, and I haven't read all of his books, so I always kept some in the bag. Anyways, on the way back, I still didn't feel like reading, so I found a short story collection by Andy Weir, The Egg and Other Stories, which was about the length of my train ride, which was nice. And those were enjoyable stories. They all had a twist at the end, and I really enjoyed them. I like Andy Weir's writing, and I need to get on with, what's it, Hail Mary, the newest book? I'd been avoiding it because I really didn't enjoy the story of Artemis, but I'm digressing. So, reading-wise, I may have read half of Before the Memory Fades, and I'm enjoying it. I really enjoy the writing. It's just so cozy. It's like getting handed a hot cup of tea put in front of the fire and just made comfortable. That kind of writing, if you enjoy his writing and enjoy the writing of those novels, because they are rather repetitive. The theme of the book seems to be discouraging or motivating people to go on. In those first two stories, we had characters who were about or ready to end their lives, and by going back into the past, meeting people, they found new motivation and encouragement to continue and move on. And so I'm guessing the other two stories have similar topics, but I have no idea because I haven't read them yet. And I'm going to stop filming this vlog because I wanted to read a book a day for a week, and looking back, I didn't go into this properly prepared. I did the mood reading thing where I chose books on a whim, didn't have any plan, and didn't have any outset motivation. I really enjoyed what I read and the books I picked up. I enjoyed the chaos of it, but overall, I think if I ever do this again, I need to have a TBR and a better plan. Also, I probably should mark what I count as a day, since reading happened a lot at night. And yeah, so if I were better prepared and hadn't forgot to do that, I would have added up all the books I read or the things I finished and the pages I read and minutes I listened to. Since I haven't done that beforehand, I will put them up here or here. I have no idea what editing Vipke is going to do, but there will be stats. I think I finished 11 things, around about 1,000 pages and 1,000 minutes, I would guess. But I have no clue, honestly. So editing Vipke will have to do the math. Let me know in comments if you've read any of the books I talked about, if you're interested in any of the books I mentioned, if you have ever attempted to read a book a day for a week or a longer stretch of time, and how your experience was with that. If there's a vlog I can watch to see how you did, just tell me about it. And thank you for watching. See you in my next video. Bye bye.